animation, it is an artistic medium that can convey so much beauty, so much humor, so much sadness, and so much emotion. It is a medium that conveys the experience of life in general, turning drawings into characters that can touch our very souls. You know what also is connotated with life? Nature, or more specifically, the environment. With the sorry state of the world in a global pandemic and inequality being more prevalent, we humans often forget how our actions impact the environment, from ocean pollution to climate change. Animation has told tales of environmentalism for many ages, as the overall message of respecting the environment seems simple enough for anyone to understand. In this video, I plan to examine 2 animated films with themes touching on environmentalism: Hayao Miyazaki's Princess Mononoke and Illumination's The Lorax, based on Dr. Seuss's The Lorax. But before we can examine these movies, we must examine some core environmental issues that took place around their respective time periods. In the 90s, an environmental renaissance was taking place, with new issues being brought to public attention, such as acid rain, climate change, and deforestation becoming more prominent. Thanks to the widespread environmental education and news media, children were being bombarded with messages of reduce, reuse, recycle, and to save the planet, giving them hope that one day their actions would save the world. Now, compared to the modern 2010s to 20s, our planet is in more danger, with climate change getting worse and air pollution becoming so present that entire city skylines were becoming gray, causing people to wear masks to prevent harmful materials from entering their bodies. And something truly scary was the growth of cynicism, where we learned that major companies who were complicit for significant amounts of environmental degradation were the ones telling the average citizen to think and to take care about the environment, taking the blame off of their shoulders and putting it on us. Because of this, we felt as if we were ultimately powerless in enacting actual change and saving the environment, with the polluted world becoming not a possibility, but more of an inevitable reality. So now that we have some context for both of these movies, let's get into talking about them. In the 2012 Lorax, the environmental catastrophic force was the oncler, a starry-eyed entrepreneur who capitalized on the truffula trees to create needs, becoming greedier and greedier as time passes by. Okay, I'm about to compare it to the book. In the movie, the main contributor to his greed is his emotionally abusive family, who saw him as a failure before his success, then convinced him to be greedier, to increase profit when he gained clout. In the book, the oncler family was introduced as a means to gain more labor, with the source of the oncler's greed being himself, not his family. Because of the movie's choice of making his family the greedy party and the oncler becoming greedier from them, the movie chooses to ignore the notion that the oncler was inherently greedy, only poisoned by the wrong influences. This is best exemplified in the song How Bad Can I Be, which shows how he is using the justification that he is a cog in the bigger machine of the economy, boosting it with his company. This thought echoes the thinking of John Sartre, who stated that individuals tend to avoid moral responsibility based on determinism, which is the belief that all outcomes are determined by pre-existing causes. However, while the song might portray this as a simple greedy rich man destroys the environment for profit, it also does not acknowledge that the oncler did not know what he was doing was wrong, in turn depicting the oncler as ignorant. In the book, the oncler has a Persona 4 moment with his shadow self, where he knows what he is doing is damaging, but chooses to turn away and continue on with production. This is arguably more realistic than simply being ignorant, because that is what real corporations do, continue on with production despite environmental degradation. The character that best embodies this line of thinking is O'Hare, who capitalized on air and has the whole town of Thneedville under his thumb. Due to the tree's natural production of oxygen, he sees them as competition and wants them out of the way to the point of censoring art and threatening children. One might regard it as, wow, a true villain who does not even justify his actions, doing whatever he wants for the sake of his own greed. However, I disagree with that sentiment. Here's the thing, companies love nature. More so, they love that it provides them with enough resources for production and profit. That is why so many companies that have contributed towards environmental degradation take part in conservation, which is defined as managing the resources that we have currently while still maintaining them for future use. By making O'Hare a ruthless individual who sees nature as a threat to business, the movie creators avoid discussing how corporations only value nature as a means of profitability and only wish to positively act when there exists irreparable damage to their resources as a whole. This brings me to something I wish to discuss: greenwashing. According to Cambridge Dictionary, greenwashing is a PR strategy that companies use to make consumers believe that they care about the environment through their policies or their products. In regards to the movie, by having a narrative where the villain is clear-cut evil and easily defeated through a song and the movie ending with the Lorax coming back, it removes the complexities and responsibilities of being an environmentally cognizant individual from the young audience, though they tried to shoehorn it in with a Dr. Seuss quote in the ending. Perhaps the movie's most incriminating piece of evidence is the marketing campaign, where the Lorax had a reported amount of 70 sponsorship deals with various sponsors such as HP, Mazda, and Comcast, with some of these companies being engagers in pollution and other environmentally dubious activities. Overall, the 2012 Lorax sells you on the premise to protect the environment despite various backroom dealings with various corporations, giving off the impression that it is a movie that is environmentally woke but is essentially disingenuous with its plots, its messages, and its practices. Now let us talk about Princess Mononoke and its take on environmentalism, a subject that I cannot even begin to delve into the surface because many more accredited and intelligent people have written full dissertations regarding the subject, but I'm gonna give it a try. The main environmental catastrophic force for Princess Mononoke was Irontown, a small iron-producing town who has implemented quite destructive means of obtaining iron, whether that be through clear-cutting or creating guns to attack forest gods and the forest spirit, all for the sake of their prosperity. Here's the thing, Irontown is not a company, it is not a city, it is merely a small town that is trying to sustain itself. It is full of individuals who were looked down upon society, such as lepers or brothel workers, brought together by their leader, the powerful Lady Eboshi. Eboshi shows that she has some knowledge that her methods are quite damaging, unlike the oncler who only bears naivete. However, unlike O'Hare, who does not even justify himself because he is too powerful and greedy, Eboshi justifies her actions by saying that they are necessary for the progression of Irontown and its people. This is arguably the most realistic type of antagonist, as plenty of people seek refuge in the idea that because they are doing good things, there would be no negative consequences. In terms of philosophy, Lady Eboshi echoes the idea of humanism, which places human interest over other aspects of life, such as the environment. This thinking is taken to the extreme with Lady Eboshi's objective of trying to get the head of the forest spirit so that she could get the Emperor to protect Irontown from samurai forces, while the Emperor gets immortality. Another person who is part of this deal is the monk Jigo, who wants the forest spirit's head so that he could get gold from the Emperor. His motivation is quite different from Lady Eboshi, as he is merely in it for his own self-interest. Jigo is meant to represent the greed that lays inside all humans, especially with his quote, "Everyone wants something." This line of thinking echoes that of Thomas Hobbes, who stated that the main contributor towards human emotion is man's innate greed. However, one particular feature of Jigo that I take note is his rationalism. He is always looking for some kind of excuse that things would get better. This is most evident when the headless forest spirit is wreaking havoc all over the land, decimating anything in its path in an indiscriminate manner. Even when faced with the destruction of all and himself, Jigo is still rationalizing that the forest spirit would die out due to sunrise. This is quite realistic, as there have existed people who refuse to acknowledge that things are bad, suggesting that the damage done to the environment is temporary in spite of mountains of evidence. Now let me discuss how this movie was not designed as greenwashing. In terms of narrative, Miyazaki adds quite admirable and positive traits to these antagonistic forces, from empathy to extrovertedness, causing the viewer to be more intrigued by these individuals and be in shock when they commit heinous deeds. By doing this, the viewer is left with the lesson of being wary of environmentally damaging influences, as today they wear a friendly face. However, that does not mean that these influences are unstoppable. With the forest reborn and Jigo and Lady Eboshi renouncing their ways and promising to work towards a better future, it offers not an end, but a hopeful beginning.